2023 Turkey-Syria earthquake. On 6 February 2023, an earthquake struck southern and central Turkey and western Syria. It occurred 34:21 mi west of the city of Gaziantep at 4:17 TRT 1:17 UTC, causing widespread damage and thousands of fatalities in the region, with a maximum Mercalli intensity of IX violent and a magnitude of at least µ7.8. The earthquake is tied with the 1939 Erzincan earthquake as the strongest recorded earthquake to hit Turkey in modern times and the deadliest earthquake to strike the country since the 1999 Izmit earthquake. It is also the deadliest earthquake worldwide since the 2011 Toku earthquake and tsunami, and also one of the strongest earthquakes ever recorded in the Levant. It caused severe structural damage as far away as Ashid, Israel and Nicosia. Cyprus earthquake on 6 February 2023. The earthquake was followed by numerous aftershocks, including an unusually powerful µ7.5. More than 12,190 deaths have been reported in total. Over 9,050 were killed in Turkey and more than 3,130 in Syria. Tsunami alert. Small tsunami waves were recorded off the coast of Famagusta, Cyprus, without damage. According to the Geological Survey Department's Civil Protection Department of Italy issued an alert, which was later withdrawn, reporting the risk of possible tsunami waves striking the coasts of Sicily, Calabria, and Apulia. Coastal residents in the aforementioned regions were advised to flee to higher ground and follow local authorities, while state-owned train operator Trenitalia temporarily suspended rail services in the areas, which were later resumed the same morning. National Research Institute of Astronomy and Geophysics of Egypt issued a tsunami warning for the eastern Mediterranean Sea area, including the Egyptian coast. The warnings were subsequently withdrawn. Rescue work at the destroyed Galleria Business Center in Diyarbakir. One of the buildings in the background later collapsed following an aftershock. A precedent's national mourning decision. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said on Twitter, search and rescue teams were immediately dispatched to the affected area. Interior Minister Slimane Soylu urged residents to refrain from entering damaged buildings. On 7 February, President Erdogan declared a 3-month state of emergency in the 10 affected provinces. National government declared a level 4 alert to appeal for international aid. According to the Disaster and Emergency Management Presidency, 25,000 search and rescue personnel were dispatched to the 10 affected provinces. At least 70 countries offered to help in search and rescue operations. Emergency services in Turkey rushed to search for survivors trapped under many collapsed buildings. On 8 February, more than 8,000 people were rescued from rubble across 10 provinces. About 380,000 individuals have taken refuge at relief shelters or hotels. An air aid corridor was established by the Turkish armed forces to mobilize search and rescue teams. Many military aircraft, including an Airbus and C-130 Hercules planes, transported search and rescue teams and vehicles to the area. Food, blankets, and psychological teams were also sent. Turkey sent an official request to NATO and allies for assistance. Flags are lowered because of national mourning. In an official statement, Minister of Youth and Sports Mehmet Kasapoglu announced that every national championship would be suspended with immediate effect until further communications. Minister of National Education Mehmet Izer ordered a week-long closure of all schools in the country. In Adana, people could be heard shouting from under debris. Cranes and emergency teams in Diyarbakir attended to a pancake department building. Over 53,000 Turkish emergency workers were deployed to the regions affected from the earthquakes. A team of 90 miners from Soma arrived at Osmani to provide assistance. The Izmir Metropolitan Municipality also sent dozens of vehicles and equipment. Poor weather conditions, including snow, rain, and freezing temperatures, disrupted search and rescue efforts undertaken by rescue workers and civilians. Rescuers and volunteers wore winter clothing while searching for survivors. President Erdogan had phone calls with governors and mayors from the disaster-affected areas, excluding Hatay. Erdogan declared 7 days of national mourning in Turkey by posting on his Twitter page due to below freezing temperatures in the affected areas in both Turkey and Syria. The mayor of Hatay, Sabah, warned about the hypothermia risk. Several tens of thousands of people across the region were left homeless and spent the night in cold weather. Officials planned to open hotels in Antalya to temporarily accommodate the affected population. Authorities were slammed by residents in Hatay province who criticized the insufficient search and rescue efforts. Hatay Airport's runway was heavily damaged, making rescue efforts challenging. On 7 February, authorities said 1,846 people in the province have been rescued. Schools in Turkey were used as shelters for people unable to return to their homes amid freezing temperatures. In Gaziantep, people sought refuge in shopping malls, stadiums, community centers, and mosques. Nearly 250,000 displaced persons resided in schools across Malatya province. At least 24 mobile kitchens from vocational schools in the province were distributed across the affected areas. Turkish police on February 7 said they had detained 4 people over provocative posts aiming to create fear and panic on social media following the earthquake. It added that a wider investigation into social media accounts was ongoing but offered no information on the content of the posts. Turkish Airlines said it would provide free flights from the provinces of Adana, Adıyaman, Gaziantep, Kayseri, Diyarbakır, Şanlıurfa, Malatya, Eliz and Kahramanmaraş. The Disaster and Emergency Management Authority opened an invitation for citizen volunteers to help with rescue efforts in the affected area. Thousands of volunteers arrived at Istanbul Airport. Bilal Aki, CEO of Turkish Airlines, said it has flown 11,780 volunteers on 80 flights to Adana, Gaziantep, Adıyaman and Urfa. Former AKP Kahramanmaraş MP Nursel Ryanloğlu verbally attacked the mayor of Istanbul, Ekrem İmamoğlu, who went to the region to help with the rescue efforts, and shouted, "What are you doing here?" English servant Indian relief assistance received by Syria. Syrian media reported a large number of buildings collapsing in the northern Aleppo governorate, as well as several in the city of Hama. In Damascus, many people fled from their homes onto the streets. Syria's National Earthquake Center said the earthquake is the biggest earthquake recorded in its operational history. According to SANA, the state news agency, President Bashar al-Assad held an emergency meeting with his cabinet to organize a rescue plan for the most hit regions. Following orders from President al-Assad, all teams of the civil defense, firefighting, health, and public construction groups were mobilized to Aleppo. Sanctions imposed in relation to the Syrian civil war have exacerbated the hardship of average Syrians, as nations and organizations would not be able to offer direct assistance for fear of being subjected to sanctions. There were demands to lift or suspend the sanctions to aid humanitarian efforts following the earthquake. The Syrian government appealed to UN member states, the International Committee of the Red Cross, and other humanitarian organizations for international aid. United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs said damaged roads and logistical issues prevented the mobilization of international aid across the border from Turkey. Border crossings into Turkey remained closed on 7 February. Critically injured patients were unable to enter Turkey for medical attention. There were exceptions as to which persons could cross, including individuals holding touristic residence permits who could only cross by foot. India airlifted 6 tons of assistance to Syria, which included 3 truckloads of protective gear, emergency medicines, ECG machines and other medical items. Some hotels, including in Latakia and Damascus, offered to accommodate to survivors free of charge and ensure basic necessities. Refugees and expatriates also opened their homes as shelters for people. Al-Sham Private University started an effort to receive people. Sports facilities, events venues, university dormitories and halls were also opened to take in people. The Syria Trust for Development announced the establishment of shelters across many governorates. Volunteer groups inspected buildings for damage and distributed food items, blankets, and first aid essentials. Due to the high number of casualties, including trauma cases, many hospitals became overcrowded. Hospitals were already experiencing a shortage of medical supplies prior to the earthquake. Hospitals in many cities were forced to operate far beyond capacity. Many patients at hospitals slept on floors due to the lack of beds. The Ministry of Health dispatched medical convoys from the health directorates of Damascus, Rif Dimashq Governorate, Hunaytra, Homs, and Tartus to Aleppo and Latakia to rebel-held areas. 28 ambulances, 7 mobile clinics, and 4 trucks carrying medical surgical and emergency aid were also dispatched. Over 2,000 Syria civil defense volunteers were sent to all the affected areas to conduct search and rescue efforts. With a lack of equipment and tools, they appealed to other humanitarian organizations for support. Officials on 7 February announced rescue and recovery efforts in Hama ended after 15 hours. International humanitarian effort. Main article: Humanitarian response to the 2023 Turkey-Syria earthquake. Leaders of many countries offered condolences. More than 80 countries offered practical support and humanitarian aid. Albania, Armenia, Algeria, Azerbaijan, the United Kingdom, Greece, Spain, Georgia, Romania, Iran, India, Israel, Kazakhstan, Moldova, Pakistan, Portugal, Slovenia, Switzerland, Serbia, Brazil, Mexico, South Korea, and Poland pledged search and rescue specialists, equipment, and search dogs. Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu ordered Russian forces in Syria to help with the rescue effort. Bulgaria dispatches 89 specialized civil protection personnel to Turkey by order of the President. Abdulmajid Tebboune. Indian Air Force airlifts National Disaster Response Force along with equipment and rescued dogs to Turkey. India sent the National Disaster Response Force (NDRF) team to Turkey along with the Indian Army's medical team, consisting of 99 members from the Agra-based 60 Parafield Hospital. The medical team includes critical care specialist teams, including an orthopedic surgical team and a general surgical specialist team. The first Indian Air Force plane carrying disaster relief material and a rescue team reached Adana. India will be sending 2 more C-17 aircraft with humanitarian assistance and disaster relief (HADR) to Turkey. The first NDRF team consisted of 50 personnel and a specially trained dog squad along with necessary equipment, including medical supplies, drilling machines, and other equipment required for the aid effort. Israel has deployed 430 search and rescue, disaster relief, and humanitarian aid workers mainly to the areas of Adana and Gaziantep. The IDF sent a 150-person delegation in place of the initial 17-person group. United Hatzalah deployed a third group of doctors, nurses, rescue workers, and psychotrauma specialists to Turkey, along with 10 tons of equipment and humanitarian assistance, including water purification devices. The Israeli government dispatched more than 30 tons of relief supplies. Pakistan's National Disaster Management Authority (NDMA) sent winterized tents and blankets. Teams of doctors, paramedics, nursing staff, and technicians trained to operate in disaster-hit areas were also dispatched with their equipment and medicines. Pakistan also sent 2 C-130 planes carrying relief and 36 search and rescue personnel. The Minister for Railways said that a PIA airplane will take a 51-member rescue team to Istanbul. Prime Minister's office reiterated to establish a relief fund and announced to donate 1 month's salary to the relief fund. Azerbaijan dispatched a search and rescue team of 420 people to Turkey. The ministry also sent another aircraft carrying first aid kits, tents, bedding, medical supplies, and other necessary equipment to help those affected. Iran delivered 45 tons of medicine, food, tents, and blankets to Syria on 7 February. Bassem Mansour, the head of the Syrian Civil Aviation Authority, said more planeloads of humanitarian aid are arriving. 2 aircraft from Iraq also arrived at the airport to deliver 70 tons of foodstuffs, medical supplies, blankets, and other aid supplies. Greece dispatched a team of 21 firefighters to rescue dogs and a special rescue vehicle along with fire brigade officer-engineer, 5 doctors and rescuers from the National Center for Emergency Care. Armenia dispatched 57 search and rescue specialists to Turkey and Syria, pledging to send further aid and food to Syria. Belgian BFAST team departed on 8 February to install a field hospital. China, Taiwan, and Belgium offered monetary support and sent additional personnel to help in the relief effort. Cyprus offered humanitarian aid to help rescue efforts in the affected areas. Turkey has since reportedly refused Cypriot aid. South Korea sent 118 rescuers, including search and rescue teams and military personnel. In a press conference, Erdogan stated that more than 18 country leaders and prime ministers called by phone to offer their support to Turkey. Arab League Secretary-General Ahmet Abulgait called for international assistance to help those affected by this humanitarian catastrophe. The European Union's European Civil Protection Mechanism, which Turkey is a member of, was activated at the request of Turkey. 25 rescue teams from 19 member states were dispatched to Turkey. The Copernicus program was also activated to provide emergency mapping services. NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg also said that member countries were mobilizing support to several United Nations agencies announced coordinated responses to the disaster, including UNDC, OCHA, UNHCR, UNICEF and IOM. The World Health Organization's WHO Regional Director for Europe, Hans Kluge, said the organization's regional offices were assisting international efforts to transport medicine and relief equipment. Norwegian Refugee Council, a humanitarian, non-governmental agency, said that they would provide direct support to those most affected across Syria. They appealed to the international community for the immediate mobilization of financial resources to support collective relief efforts in Syria and southern Turkey. CRE Australia launched an emergency appeal to provide emergency aid including food, shelter, water and other life-saving supplies to those affected by the earthquakes. Caritas Internationalis raised money, and the World Jewish Relief Charity launched an emergency appeal to provide emergency aid to Turkey. The Jewish Federation raised money for Turkey. Over 50 Jewish communities donated to earthquake relief efforts. Several Turkish humanitarian institutions, such as AHBP, the Turkish Philanthropy Funds US-based, and Turkish Red Crescent, besides other ICRC members around the world, also launched emergency appeals in order to help the victims. The Organization of Turkic States shared their condolences through a release on their website. Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Moussa Faki, expressed his condolences to Turkey and Syria.